Imagine for a second that you're holding like winning lottery ticket right in your hand. You have the numbers, it's the massive jackpot. But because there's this thick smudge of dirt obscuring the print, you just assume it's another piece of trash and you throw it away.
Oh, man. That's rough.
Right. Or perhaps even worse, imagine you know exactly what it is, but because you try to cheat the person who actually found it out of their share, you end up losing the entire ticket altogether.
Yeah, that realization that the ultimate treasure was sitting right there in your palms and you just actively let it slip away, whether through ignorance or just pure malice. I mean, that is one of the most agonizing experiences a human being can endure.
Totally. And that profound agony is actually the focal point of our deep dive today. We are exploring this really remarkable piece of literature called the Serivanija Jataka.
Yes.
It's an ancient Buddhist birth story, part of the Jataka tales, and it operates as this really stark, visceral warning about the mechanics of greed.
And hidden value, too.
Exactly, the nature of hidden value and the true cost of failing to recognize the moment your life is about to change.
So to really understand the weight of this narrative, I think it helps to look at the framework of the Jataka tales themselves, right?
Yeah, lay it out for us.
We are pulling from this massive tradition. There are over 500 of these birth stories. And the central premise here is that the Buddha possessed this extraordinary cognitive ability to just recall all the events of his previous existences.
Wow.
Right. And not just his, but the past lives of those around him, too, spanning across these vast, unfathomable stretches of time.
Which is just, I mean, the scale of that memory is difficult to even wrap your head around because the text explicitly notes that the events of our story today took place 5 eons ago.
Yeah, and that concept of an eon or a kalpa
Yeah.
in Buddhist cosmology that is absolutely crucial for setting the stage here. We aren't just talking about a few millennia.
No, definitely not.
A single kalpa is often described using these metaphors that kind of just break the human brain.
Give me an example.
Okay, so imagine a solid mountain of rock, right? And once every 100 years, you just brush it lightly with a piece of silk.
Just a piece of silk every 100 years.
Exactly. The time it takes for that soft silk to completely wear away that entire mountain that is less than 1 kalpa.
That is insane.
It is. So when the text says this happened 5 eons ago, it's emphasizing that the karmic echoes of our actions, they reverberate through this almost infinite expanse of time.
Right. The lessons learned or even the grudges formed, they don't just vanish when a single life ends.
Precisely.
Which really brings a tremendous gravity to the framing device of the text. Because every Jataka tale opens with this story of the present, like the immediate reason the Buddha is telling the story in the first place.
Right.
And in this case, he's addressing this specific monk in his order who is, well, he's losing his perseverance. This monk has dedicated his life to spiritual awakening, but the day-to-day effort is just grinding him down.
He's burning out.
He's totally burning out. He's getting faint-hearted, and he's basically on the verge of walking away from his vows.
And the Buddha essentially looks at this exhausted monk and decides, he needs a shock to the system.
Yeah.
He tells him this really intense, highly dramatic tale to wake him up. He's warning him that if he gives up his spiritual pursuit right now, he will suffer the agonizing regret of the hawker of Seri, who lost a golden bowl worth 100,000 pieces.
So let's look at the mechanics of how that loss actually unfolds. Because we travel back those 5 eons to the kingdom of Seri, and we're following 2 hawkers, basically traveling merchants dealing in everyday pots and pans.
Right, door-to-door salesmen of the ancient world.
Exactly. They cross the river Telavaha and enter this city called Antapura. Now, one of these hawkers is the Bodhisattva, meaning the future Buddha in a past life, and he operates with complete honesty.
And the other guy?
The other hawker is driven entirely by avarice, just pure greed. So, to maximize their profits, they agree to apportion the territory, right? They divide the city streets between them so they aren't competing for the exact same buyers.
Makes sense from a business standpoint.
Yeah,
Standard
practice.
But in the district claims by the greedy hawker, there is this very specific household. The text refers to them as a decayed family.
I always find that term so striking.
It is. Historically, in the socioeconomic context of these ancient cities, merchant guilds held immense wealth and power. And this family was once at the absolute pinnacle of that hierarchy. They were immensely wealthy.
But not anymore.
No. Over successive generations, through tragedy or misfortune, they've lost everything. All the sons and brothers are dead. The wealth is completely gone. The only survivors are this young girl and her grandmother.
And they are completely destitute, right?
Absolutely. They're surviving solely by working for daily hire, hand-to-mouth existence.
Right. But sitting among their worthless everyday cooking pots is this single bowl, and the text notes that the former head of the family used to eat out of it,
Yeah.
but it hasn't been touched in years, and it's entirely covered in this thick black layer of grime and soot. The grandmother and the girl have absolutely no idea that beneath all that dirt, this bowl is forged from solid gold.
It is the ultimate hidden heirloom. But, the question that immediately comes to my mind is, how could a family, especially one starving and desperate, possibly forget they own a massive chunk of solid gold?
Right. I mean, it's easy to assume they were just careless, but the psychology at play here seems so much deeper. I like to think of it like sensory adaptation.
Like nose blindness.
Exactly. When you live in a house that constantly smells like smoke, after a few months, your brain literally stops registering the smell to protect your sanity. It just filters out the stimulus.
That's a great analogy.
This family has lived in absolute destitution for so long, their brains have completely filtered out the possibility that they possess anything of value.
That is precisely the mechanism at work. The heavy, symbolic weight of the grime on the bowl isn't just physical dirt. It is the manifestation of their trauma and their scarcity mindset. When your entire cognitive load is dedicated to just surviving the next 24 hours, you lose touch with your own history. The bowl represents their innate value, their noble past, but it has been totally obscured by the relentless grind of poverty.
So they literally can't see the gold because of their circumstances.
The grandmother couldn't see the gold because the reality of her life had conditioned her to only expect dirt.
Man. And that conditioning makes them incredibly vulnerable to what happens next, because the greedy hawker comes down their street calling out for people to buy his water pots.
Right.
The young girl hears him and immediately begs her grandmother for a trinket. And the grandmother points out the obvious, like, we have no money to trade.
But then she remembers the bowl.
Exactly. She remembers the old dirty bowl. She assumes it has zero utility for them, so she figures she might be able to barter it for something cheap and shiny just to make her granddaughter happy.
So they invite the hawker inside, they hand him this heavy, grime-covered bowl, and ask what he might trade for it.
And he takes
it, and his professional instincts kick in. The weight, or the shape, alerts him that this isn't standard clay or brass. The text actually says he secretly takes a needle and scratches a line on the back of the bowl.
Sneaky.
And the needle cuts through the years of soot, and he sees the gleam. He knows, with absolute certainty, that he is holding a small fortune in pure gold.
And this is the crucial turning point, right? He has a choice to make.
A massive choice. He could offer a fair trade, taking a handsome profit while still compensating the women. But instead, his greed just totally consumes him. He decides he wants the gold for absolutely nothing.
Which is just, it's so dark. He immediately launches into this deliberate theatrical deception. He looks at these two desperate women, throws the golden bowl onto the ground, and shouts, "What's the value of this prey? Why it isn't worth half a farthing?"
The audacity.
Right. But I actually should pause here for a second because the word farthing really stands out to me. Obviously, an ancient Indian merchant wasn't using medieval British currency.
Right. It's a fascinating translation artifact, actually. The scholars who translated the Pali texts into English in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, they often substituted ancient Indian terms with British equivalents just to convey the relative value to their readers.
Got it.
A farthing was the smallest denomination of British currency at the time, a quarter of a penny. So by having the hawker claim the bowl isn't even worth half a farthing, the translator is emphasizing that the hawker is trying to drive the perceived value down to absolute zero.
Okay, that makes sense. The original Pali text conveys the idea of a completely worthless coin.
Exactly, a fraction of the lowest possible denomination.
So he drops the bowl, claims it's literal garbage, jumps up, and just storms out of the house. He assumes he'll walk around the block, let them feel the sting of rejection, and come back later when they are so desperate they'll practically beg him to take it off their hands for a handful of copper.
A classic pressure tactic.
Yeah, but I get that he's the villain of the story, but looking at it from today's perspective, isn't anchoring low just business 101? Like, if I go to a flea market or a car dealership, I don't offer top dollar first. I walk away to show I have leverage. Why is his lowball offer framed as this fatal moral failing rather than just, savvy bargaining?
That's a fair question, but that distinction highlights the difference between negotiation and psychological manipulation.
Okay.
Negotiation requires a shared reality, right? Both parties recognize an item has value, and they are debating the margin. What the greedy hawker does here is entirely different. He is preying on their ignorance and attempting to completely overwrite their reality.
Oh, I see.
By claiming the bowl has negative value, he breaks the foundational trust required for any human commerce or interaction.
He introduces a total falsehood into the world just to exploit their scarcity mindset.
Precisely. And from a purely strategic standpoint, avarice just makes him stupid. He completely overplays his hand.
He left the bowl.
Yes. In his obsession with acquiring the bowl for literally nothing, he leaves the physical object behind. He assumes his deception is so flawless that he controls the board. He fails to account for the possibility of truth entering the equation.
And truth enters almost immediately, because the two hawkers had a prior agreement. If one had already canvassed a street, the other could follow behind to try his luck with anyone the first hawker missed.
Right.
So the honest hawker, the Bodhisattva, enters that very same street calling out his wares. The young girl hears him and again asks her grandmother to try for a trade.
And the grandmother is naturally defensive now.
Who wouldn't be?
The first hawker's theatrical rejection humiliated her. She tells her granddaughter, "The first hawker threw our bowl on the ground and flung out of the house. What have we got left to offer now?"
The lie worked.
It did. She has fully internalized the belief that their only possession is completely worthless.
But the granddaughter notices a distinct difference in demeanor. She points out that the first man was harsh and aggressive, while this new hawker seems kind and gentle.
She senses a different energy.
Yeah, so they call him in, offer him a seat, and hand him the exact same soot-covered bowl.
And the Bodhisattva performs the exact same appraisal. He examines the bowl and realizes it is solid gold.
Ugh.
But his response is the polar opposite of his predecessor.
What does he do?
He looks the grandmother in the eye and delivers the unfiltered truth. He says, "Mother, this bowl is worth 100,000 pieces.
He just lays it out there, 100,000 pieces.
Yeah.
And he immediately confesses his own limitations, saying, I haven't its value with me. He doesn't have the capital to buy a solid gold artifact outright.
No traveling hawker would.
Right. But the grandmother's reaction to this honesty is brilliant. She has been so thoroughly conditioned by her poverty and so rattled by the first hawker's cruelty that her brain cannot accept the mundane truth that the bowl was always gold.
Oh, she thinks it's magic.
She does. She tells the Bodhisattva that the first man said it wasn't worth half a farthing, so it must be the sheer power of the Bodhisattva's moral goodness that literally transformed the clay into gold right there in his hands.
She interprets his honesty as an act of literal alchemy.
Because in her world, someone telling the truth to their own detriment is nothing short of a miracle.
Wow. That's powerful.
And because she believes his goodness created the value, she tells him to take it, give them whatever he can spare in return, and go on his way.
And this is where we see the Bodhisattva's philosophy in action. He empties his entire inventory and his pockets.
Everything.
Everything. He gives them 500 pieces of money and his entire stock of wares, which is worth another 500. He gives them 1,000 pieces in total.
Wait.
He only asks to retain 3 strictly utilitarian items, his measuring scales, his bag, and exactly 8 coins to pay the ferryman to take him back across the river. They accept, he takes the bowl, and he immediately heads for the water.
Okay, from a modern financial perspective, this seems incredibly extreme. It's the equivalent of liquidating your entire 401k, emptying your checking account, and handing over the keys to your car for a single asset.
It's all in.
Right, and the grandmother told him to give them something or other. He could have handed over 50 coins, kept the rest of his stock, and he still would have been infinitely more generous than the first guy. Why does he impoverish himself to make this transaction? Why give them everything?
Because in the framework of the Bodhisattva's path, holding back wealth when you recognize an ultimate truth is a form of attachment.
Okay.
He isn't just trying to execute a fair trade. The transaction is a demonstration of non-attachment to lesser things when faced with something transcendent.
The gold bowl represents something far greater than money.
Yes. The greedy hawker viewed the bowl purely as a means to extract wealth from others without giving anything of himself. The Bodhisattva recognizes the bowl's immense inherent value and understands that to honor that value, he must offer everything he has.
That makes a lot of sense.
If he had held back half his money just to maintain a comfortable cushion, he would be operating from the same scarcity mindset as the greedy hawker, acting out of fear rather than clarity.
So by giving everything, he actually frees himself. He creates immediate trust, he honors the dignity of the family, and he secures the prize without a single moment of conflict. He simply pays the toll, gets on the boat, and leaves.
which leaves a massive ticking time bomb back at the house.
Oh, yeah. Because the first Hawker is still operating under the delusion that his manufactured reality is intact. He strolls back to the house, likely expecting the women to be weeping with gratitude when he offers them a few copper coins for their worthless bowl.
He demands they bring the bowl out, claiming he'll do them a favor and give them a little something for it.
But the grandmother fiercely rebuffs him. She doesn't just reject his offer, she dismantles his reality. She tells him an upright Hawker has already come, paid them 1,000 pieces, and taken the bowl away.
She even explicitly calls out his lie.
Exactly. She points out that he tried to tell them it wasn't worth half a farthing.
And the moment those words hit the greedy Hawker, the narrative pivots. It goes from a story about a missed financial opportunity into a terrifying portrait of psychological collapse.
It's a total
He
breakdown.
realizes the scale of his miscalculation. He held 100,000 pieces of gold in his own hands, and because he tried to squeeze 2 starving women out of a few extra coins, he lost the entire fortune.
The text describes a complete and total meltdown.
He loses all command over his own mind. He begins shouting that the other Hawker has robbed him, that he has been ruined. The sorrow and regret are so intense that they actually shatter his sanity.
It is a primal, violent regression. He starts flinging his money and his goods all over the ground outside their door. He strips off his clothes, tearing away both his upper and undergarments until he is standing bare in the street.
Just completely lost it.
Yeah. He grabs the heavy beam of his measuring scales to use as a club, and he sprints toward the river, tracking the Bodhisattva down. All of his calculated, cold-blooded business tactics just evaporate, leaving nothing but naked, desperate rage.
And he arrives at the riverbank just as the Bodhisattva's boat is pulling away into the current.
He stands on the shore, gripping his club, screaming at the ferryman to turn the boat around. But the Bodhisattva calmly instructs the boatman to keep rowing.
And here we reach the climax.
The greedy Hawker is forced to stand on the shore, gazing out over the water, watching the ultimate prize physically sail away from him. He is entirely powerless. And the text provides this incredibly gruesome, visceral imagery of his death.
It's quite shocking.
It really is. It says his heart grew hot, blood gushed from his lips, and his heart cracked like the mud at the bottom of a tank which the sun has dried up. He perishes right there on the spot, killed by his own hatred.
That metaphor of the dried mud is profound. A water tank in the ancient world was a vital source of life. It was meant to be fluid, sustaining, and cool.
Right.
But when the relentless sun beats down on it, evaporating the water, what is left behind is brittle, dead earth that fractures under its own tension.
The heat of his rage literally baked him from the inside out.
Exactly. The sun in this metaphor is his avarice. The greedy Hawker didn't die of a broken heart because he lost a bowl. His heart cracked because it couldn't contain the toxicity of his own grasping nature. All his humanity, his compassion, his fluidity had been evaporated by greed.
He wanted something for nothing, and the friction of that impossibility destroyed him.
And this destructive cycle echoes far beyond this single lifetime.
Wait, really? How so?
Well, within the broader context of the Buddhist canon, this specific moment on the riverbank is a foundational origin story. The text reveals that the greedy Hawker is the past incarnation of Devadatta.
Oh.
Yes, Devadatta goes on to become the primary antagonist of the Buddha in his final life, constantly plotting against him, attempting to cause schisms in the order, and even trying to assassinate him.
So this is where the rivalry actually begins.
This is the genesis of an eternal grudge. It illustrates that failed greed doesn't just result in a lost opportunity today. The resentment hardens into a karmic burden that a person drags with them across eons. The Hawker blamed the Bodhisattva for robbing him, rather than accepting that his own deception cost him the prize.
Wow. And that brings us right back to the faint-hearted monks sitting in front of the Buddha. The Buddha isn't just telling him a fable about ancient merchants, he is diagnosing the monk's current psychological state.
Right.
The Buddha tells him, if in this faith you prove remiss and fail to win the goal, then like the Hawker called the Serivan, full long you'll rue the prize your folly lost.
The golden bowl is no longer just a physical object. It is the metaphor for spiritual liberation. The monk currently holds the opportunity for enlightenment in his hands, but because the daily practice is difficult, because the path requires effort, the monk is starting to view the discipline as a burden. He is looking at the soot and forgetting the gold beneath it.
Because if he walks away, if he expects the ultimate reward without paying the full price of dedication, he will inevitably realize what he threw away. And that realization will crack his heart just like the mud in the dried tank.
The tragedy of the Serivan Hawker is that he recognized the value but refused to honor it.
Mhm.
The monk is being warned not to make the same fatal miscalculation with his own mind.
The Buddha leaves the faint-hearted monk with a haunting thought, and it's the same thought we want to leave with you. The greatest tragedies in life aren't always the things that are violently stolen from us. Most often, they're the treasures we willingly trade away for nothing, simply because we lacked the patience to scratch beneath the grime.
This is so true.
It's worth looking at your own life and asking what you might be throwing away right now, simply because it looks like dirt or because you're waiting for a cheaper price. When you finally see the gold, you have to be willing to give everything you have to hold on to it.
It requires the courage to empty your pockets when the truth presents itself, rather than trying to manipulate the scales.
We want to humbly thank you for joining us on this journey today. There is a vast treasure trove of these ancient wisdom stories waiting to be explored, so we urge you to stay hooked for the next incredible narrative in our future deep dives. Until then, keep a close eye on the everyday pots and pans in your life. You never know when you are holding something truly invaluable in the palms of your hands.